The woman standing at my front door had my husband's eyes. I gripped the doorframe so hard my knuckles turned white. She was young, maybe 30, with long brown hair and a nervous smile. But those eyes, those deep green eyes that I had loved for 45 years, they were staring back at me from a stranger's face. "Mrs. Johnson," she said softly. "My name is Sarah. I think we need to talk about Robert." My Robert. My husband who had died just 3 weeks ago. My Robert who was supposed to be buried with all his secrets. But apparently, he wasn't. The world seemed to spin around me as I stared at this young woman. She was holding a little boy's hand, a boy who couldn't have been more than 8 years old. He had Robert's nose. Robert's thick, dark hair. Even the way he stood with one foot slightly turned out, just like Robert used to do. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice barely working. "I don't understand." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Mrs. Johnson, Robert was my father. 3 weeks earlier. Martha, can you bring me my pills?" Robert called from his chair in the living room. He had been getting weaker every day. The cancer was winning, and we both knew it. I walked over with his medicine and a glass of water. After 45 years of marriage, I knew exactly how he liked everything. 2 ice cubes in his water. Pills in his left palm because his right hand shook too much. "Thank you, sweetheart," he said, squeezing my hand gently. His wedding ring clinked against mine, the same rings we had worn since 1978. We lived in a small town called Millfield, population 3,000. Everyone knew everyone. Robert worked at the hardware store for 30 years before he retired. I taught 2nd grade at the elementary school. We were the couple everyone pointed to and said, "Now that's true love." Robert and I never had children. We tried for years, went to doctors, prayed every night. It just wasn't meant to be, the doctors said. So we poured all our love into each other instead. "Martha," Robert said that day, his voice more serious than usual. "If anything happens to me." "Don't talk like that," I interrupted, fluffing his pillow. "Listen to me," he insisted, grabbing my wrist gently. "If anything happens, I want you to know that you were the best thing that ever happened to me. You made my life complete." I kissed his forehead. "You're not going anywhere yet, Robert Johnson." But I was wrong. 2 days later, I woke up and Robert wasn't breathing. The funeral was beautiful. The whole town came. People told stories about how Robert had helped them fix their broken fences, how he always had a smile and a joke ready. How he and I were couple goals, that's what the young folks called it. Pastor Williams said Robert was surely in heaven now, finally at peace. I thought I knew everything about my husband. I thought our love story was simple and perfect. I thought 45 years together meant no more surprises. I was wrong about everything. The first strange thing happened when I was cleaning out Robert's closet. Way in the back, behind his old winter coats, I found a small wooden box I had never seen before. Inside were things that made no sense: a child's drawing of a stick family, a hospital bracelet from a town called Riverside, 30 miles away, and a picture of Robert holding a baby. Not just any baby. A baby that looked exactly like Robert had looked in his own baby pictures. My hands were shaking as I stared at that photograph. Robert looked younger in the picture, maybe in his 30s. He was smiling the biggest smile I had ever seen, bigger than the smile from our wedding day. Who was this baby? When was this picture taken? Robert had never mentioned going to Riverside. We had never talked about him holding anyone else's baby. I sat on our bedroom floor, surrounded by Robert's old clothes, holding this mysterious box. 45 years of marriage, and suddenly I felt like I didn't know my husband at all. That's when I decided to drive to Riverside. The town was bigger than Millfield, with actual traffic lights and a shopping mall. I drove around aimlessly for an hour, not even sure what I was looking for. Finally, I stopped at a diner called Mom's Kitchen and ordered coffee. "You look lost, honey," said the waitress, a friendly woman about my age. "I'm looking for information about someone," I said carefully. "A man named Robert Johnson. He might have connections here." The waitress's face changed completely. Her smile disappeared. "Robert Johnson," she repeated slowly. "Tall man, green eyes, worked with his hands?" My heart started beating faster. "Yes, that's him." "Honey," she said, sitting down across from me, "Robert Johnson died 3 weeks ago." The whole neighborhood went to his memorial service. His wife Sarah and their son Tommy were heartbroken. The coffee cup slipped from my hands and crashed to the floor. Wife. Son. Robert had another family. My perfect husband, my faithful companion of 45 years, had been living a double life. And now, 3 weeks later, that other family was standing at my front door. Sarah was still talking, but I couldn't hear the words over the roaring in my ears. The little boy, Tommy, was looking up at me with Robert's curious expression, the same look Robert got when he was trying to figure out how to fix something. "Mrs. Johnson?" Sarah said again. "Are you okay? Maybe I should come back another time." "No," I said firmly, though my voice was still shaking. "Come in. We need to talk." As I stepped back to let them enter, I saw a car parked across the street with 2 more people inside, a teenage girl and an older woman. They were all watching my house. How many more family members were there? How long had this been going on? How could I have been so blind? Sarah and Tommy walked into my living room, the same room where Robert had died just 3 weeks ago. They sat on the same couch where Robert and I had watched TV every night for decades. "I'm sorry to come like this," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "But I had to meet you. I had to see the woman my father loved so much that he—" She stopped talking and looked away. "That he what?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Sarah looked back at me with tears streaming down her face. "That he chose to spend most of his time with you instead of us." I stared at Sarah, trying to understand what she meant. My brain felt like it was moving through thick mud. "Most of his time?" I repeated slowly. "But he lived here. With me. Every day for 45 years. Sarah wiped her eyes with a tissue. Little Tommy was playing with a toy car on my coffee table, the same coffee table where Robert had eaten breakfast every morning. "Mrs. Johnson," Sarah said gently, "my father told us he was a traveling salesman. He said his job took him away for weeks at a time. He would come home to Riverside for a few days, then leave again for work trips." The room started spinning. Those work trips. Robert had taken so many work trips over the years. Sometimes for a week, sometimes just for weekends. He said the hardware store needed him to visit suppliers in other towns. I had never questioned it. Why would I? I trusted my husband completely. But the hardware store? I whispered. "Mrs. Johnson, what hardware store?" Sarah asked, looking confused. That's when I realized the horrible truth. Robert had lied to both of us. He told Sarah he was a traveling salesman. He told me he worked at Miller's hardware store in Millfield. But what was his real job? How had he supported 2 families? "I need to sit down," I said, sinking into Robert's chair. It still smelled like his aftershave. Sarah moved closer to me. "My mother died when I was 15, she explained. Car accident. After that, it was just me and Dad and Tommy. Dad would come home every few weeks, and we lived for those visits. He was the most wonderful father in the world when he was there." "Every few weeks?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Yes." He said his sales territory was huge. He had to travel all over the state. Sarah's voice got quieter. "Sometimes we wouldn't see him for a month." I closed my eyes and tried to remember. All those years when Robert said he was traveling for work. All those nights I slept alone, missing him. All those times I wished he didn't have to travel so much for his job. He wasn't working. He was with them. How old is Tommy? I asked, looking at the little boy who was now examining Robert's old reading glasses. 8, Sarah said. Dad was so excited when Tommy was born. He took a whole week off from work to stay with us. I remembered that week 8 years ago. Robert had told me he was sick with the flu. He stayed home from the hardware store, but he seemed perfectly healthy to me. He was just absent. Like his mind was somewhere else entirely. Now I knew where his mind had been. He had been thinking about his newborn son. There's more, Sarah said, her voice shaking. Mom, can you come in now? The older woman I had seen in the car walked through my front door. She looked to be about 65, with gray hair and kind eyes. Behind her came the teenage girl, maybe 16, with Robert's green eyes and his stubborn chin. This is my mother-in-law, Helen, Sarah said. And this is my daughter, Emma. Helen sat down across from me and took a deep breath. Mrs. Johnson, I need to tell you something that might upset you even more. I couldn't imagine being more upset than I already was. Robert didn't just have Sarah and Tommy, Helen said slowly. My daughter, Sarah's mother, wasn't his first wife either. The world stopped turning. What? I whispered. Robert married my daughter Linda in 1985, Helen continued. But Linda found out that Robert was already married. To you. I felt like I was going to throw up. That's impossible. Robert and I got married in 1978. We were each other's first and only marriage. That's what he told Linda too, Helen said sadly. He told her his first wife had died in an accident. He showed her fake death certificates and everything. Sarah gasped. Grandma, you never told me this. I didn't want to hurt you, honey, Helen said. But now that we've found Mrs. Johnson, the truth has to come out. Helen turned back to me. When Linda discovered Robert was still married to you, she was going to leave him. But then she found out she was pregnant with Sarah. Robert begged her to stay. He promised he would get a divorce and make everything right. But he never did, I said, already knowing the answer. No, he never did. Linda loved him too much to force him to choose. So they lived like this, with Robert splitting his time between two families. Linda died thinking she was helping Robert be happy with both the women he loved. I stood up so fast that Robert's chair fell over backward. Both women he loved? I shouted. He wasn't supposed to love anyone else. We were married. Tommy started crying at my loud voice. Emma, Robert's granddaughter who I never knew existed, put her arm around him. Mrs. Johnson, please, Sarah said. I know this is awful. But try to understand, Dad loved you both. He used to talk about you all the time. He talked about me? I asked, my anger mixing with confusion. All the time, Sarah nodded. He said you were the smartest woman he ever met. He said you made the best apple pie in the world. He said you had a laugh that could light up any room. Despite everything, I felt my heart skip a beat. Robert had said those exact words to me many times over the years. He also said, Sarah continued, that his biggest regret was that he couldn't give you children. He said it broke his heart watching you want babies so badly. Now I was crying. Because that was true too. Robert had held me while I cried every month when I wasn't pregnant. He had been to every doctor's appointment, held my hand through every test. But he had children, I said through my tears. He had you and Tommy. And he felt guilty about that every single day, Helen said quietly. Linda used to catch him crying sometimes. He would say he wished he could bring Sarah and Tommy to meet you, because he knew you would love them. Emma, my step-granddaughter who I was meeting for the first time, walked over to me. She pulled something out of her backpack. Mrs. Johnson, she said in a voice that sounded exactly like Robert's, Grandpa Robert gave this to me before he died. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should make sure you got it. She handed me an envelope with my name written on it in Robert's familiar handwriting. Inside was a letter that would change everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my husband, and myself. The letter began, "My dearest Martha, if you are reading this, then you have met the other family I never had the courage to tell you about. You are probably angry and hurt and confused. But please read this whole letter before you decide what to think of me." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the paper. But I kept reading. "Martha, I need you to know that every word I ever said to you about love was true. You were not half of my heart, you were my whole heart. Sarah and Tommy and Emma, they were something else entirely. They were my second chance at the family we never got to have together." I looked up at Sarah, who was watching me with tears in her eyes. "Keep reading," she whispered. But before I could read another word, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, a man in a dark suit was standing on my porch. "Mrs. Johnson," he said. "My name is Detective Williams with the State Police. I need to ask you some questions about your husband Robert's death." Behind him were two more police officers and a woman with a briefcase who looked like a lawyer. "Ma'am," Detective Williams said, "we have reason to believe your husband Robert Johnson was not who he claimed to be." I looked back at Sarah, Helen, Emma, and Tommy sitting in my living room, then at the police officers on my porch. Nothing made sense anymore. "What do you mean he wasn't who he claimed to be?" I asked Detective Williams. "Ma'am, may we come in? This is going to take some time to explain." I stepped aside, and suddenly my small living room was full of people. Sarah pulled Tommy closer to her. Emma grabbed her grandmother Helen's hand. Everyone was scared. Detective Williams opened a thick folder. "Mrs. Johnson, what was your husband's full name?" "Robert James Johnson," I said automatically. "Born April 15, 1955, in Chicago." The detective shook his head. "Ma'am, the real Robert James Johnson died in a car accident in Chicago in 1977. Your husband had been using his identity for over 40 years. The room went completely silent. Even Tommy stopped playing with his toy car. "That's impossible," Sarah whispered. "My father was Robert Johnson." "Miss," Detective Williams said gently, "your father's real name was Michael Patrick O'Sullivan. He was wanted by the FBI for bank robbery." I felt like I was falling through the floor. "Bank robbery? My sweet, gentle husband who fixed neighbors' broken fences and helped old ladies carry groceries?" The woman with the briefcase opened her case and pulled out photographs. "Mrs. Johnson, is this your husband?" She showed me a picture of Robert, but he looked younger and was wearing a suit. He was walking out of a bank carrying a large bag. The timestamp on the photo said 1976. "I don't understand," I said, sinking back into Robert's chair. "Robert worked at the hardware store. He never hurt anyone." "Ma'am," Detective Williams said, "Michael O'Sullivan robbed 6 banks in Illinois between 1975 and 1977. He stole over $200,000. Then he disappeared completely. Until now," the woman with the briefcase added. "When he died, the hospital had to run his fingerprints for the death certificate. That's when we discovered who he really was." Helen spoke up from the couch. "Officer, are you saying my son-in-law was a criminal this whole time?" "Yes, ma'am." "But here's what's interesting," Detective Williams said, sitting down across from me. "After 1977, Michael O'Sullivan never committed another crime. He became Robert Johnson and lived a completely honest life. Both families, all his neighbors, everyone we've talked to says he was one of the kindest men they ever knew." I looked at Robert's letter still in my hands. "But how did he support 2 families if he wasn't working?" The woman with the briefcase answered. "Mrs. Johnson, your husband was very smart with money. He invested that stolen money and lived off the returns for 40 years. Legally, that money belongs to the banks he stole from. But he used it to take care of both families. He took care of us," Tommy said suddenly. It was the first time he had spoken. "Daddy always brought us presents and paid for my school and bought Mommy groceries. And he took care of me too, I said quietly. We never worried about money. He always said he was good at saving. Sarah was crying again. So everything was a lie? His name, his job, his whole life? Detective Williams leaned forward. Miss, I've been a police officer for 20 years. I've seen a lot of criminals try to change their lives. Most of them fail. Your father didn't just change, he became a completely different person. He pulled out another folder. We've been investigating Michael O'Sullivan's disappearance for decades. But when we started looking into Robert Johnson's life, we found something amazing. What? I asked. Mrs. Johnson, your husband donated money to charity every year. Anonymous donations. He helped pay for school supplies for poor children. He fixed elderly people's houses for free. He drove sick neighbors to doctor appointments. Emma looked up. Grandpa did those things in Riverside too. He helped everyone in our neighborhood. The man who robbed those banks in 1977 became a man who spent 40 years trying to make up for what he did, Detective Williams said. We've never seen anything like it. I looked down at Robert's letter again and continued reading where I had left off. Martha, by the time you read this, you will know that I was not the man I pretended to be. My real name was Michael O'Sullivan, and I did terrible things when I was young and stupid and desperate. I stole money from banks. I lied about who I was. I ran away from my mistakes instead of facing them. I wiped my eyes and kept reading. But then I met you, Martha. You were teaching second grade and I was just a lost young man who didn't know how to be good. You taught me what love looked like. You showed me how to be honest and kind and generous. You saved my soul. When I found out we couldn't have children, I was heartbroken for you. You would have been the most wonderful mother in the world. So when I met Linda and she got pregnant with Sarah, I thought maybe this was God's way of giving us the family we couldn't have together. I know that's not an excuse for lying to both of you. I know I should have been brave enough to tell the truth. But I was scared you would both leave me, and I couldn't live without either of you. Sarah was reading over my shoulder now. Keep going, she whispered. Martha, I want you to meet Sarah and Tommy and Emma. They are good people, just like you. Sarah is smart and funny, just like you were when you were young. Tommy loves to build things with his hands, just like I taught him. Emma writes poetry and wants to be a teacher, just like you. I think you will love them, and I know they will love you. You are all my family. You are all the best parts of who I became. The letter ended with, please don't hate me for my lies. Instead, remember that every day I spent with you made me a better man. I loved you with my whole heart, Martha. I always will. Your devoted husband, Michael. I folded the letter and looked around the room at all these people who had loved the same man I loved. Detective Williams cleared his throat. Mrs. Johnson, legally, we have to return the stolen money to the banks. But your husband left everything else to both families equally. His investments, his savings, everything he earned honestly over the years. I don't want his money, I said quietly. I just want to understand why he did this. Emma stood up and walked over to me. Mrs. Johnson, can I tell you something Grandpa Robert told me? I nodded. He said the biggest mistake of his life wasn't robbing those banks. He said his biggest mistake was not introducing his two families to each other sooner. He said he spent 40 years loving all of us separately when he should have brought us together. I looked at Sarah, who was holding Tommy's hand. I looked at Helen, who had raised her granddaughter after her daughter died. I looked at Emma, who had her grandfather's eyes and his kind heart. These weren't strangers. These were Robert's family. And if they were Robert's family, then they were my family too. Sarah, I said slowly, would you like to see Robert's workshop? He built a rocking horse for the children he thought we'd never have. Tommy might like to play with it. Sarah's face lit up with the first real smile I had seen from her. He built things for you too? All the time, I said, standing up. He built me bookshelves and a garden bench and a special table for grading papers. He said working with his hands helped him think. He built me a dollhouse, Emma said. And he taught me how to use tools. As we walked toward Robert's workshop, Detective Williams called after us. Mrs. Johnson, we'll need you to come to the station tomorrow to sign some paperwork. But there won't be any charges. Your husband paid his debt to society by becoming the man he became. I turned back to him. Detective, what happens now? Now, he said, you all figure out how to be a family. 6 months later, I was sitting in my garden watching Tommy play with the rocking horse that Robert had built 30 years ago. Sarah was teaching me how to make her mother's famous chocolate chip cookies. Emma was helping me grade papers for the substitute teaching job I had taken. Helen had moved from Riverside to Millfield and bought the house next door. She said she was too old to live alone, and I was too young to live alone, so we might as well be alone together. Every Sunday, we all had dinner together. We told stories about Robert, some true, some probably not true, all filled with love. We looked through photo albums from both households and marveled at how he had kept us apart for so long. Sometimes I was still angry at him for lying to us. Sometimes I missed him so much I couldn't breathe. But mostly, I was grateful. Robert had been right about one thing, we did love each other. Sarah was like the daughter I never had. Tommy called me Grandma Martha and brought me dandelions from the yard. Emma helped me understand computers and I helped her with her college application essays. We were healing together, all of us. We were becoming the family that Robert had always wanted us to be. The man I married wasn't Robert Johnson. He was Michael O'Sullivan, a bank robber who had spent 40 years learning how to love. And somehow, impossibly, that made me love him even more. On quiet evenings, when the house was full of the sound of Sarah cooking dinner and Tommy playing with his toys and Emma doing homework, I would sit in Robert's chair and read his letter again. He had been wrong about so many things. But he had been right about the most important thing of all. Love doesn't divide when you share it. It multiplies. And now I had more love than I knew what to do with.